Ooh, okay. Things that come up into mind right now. Rumble, Talia, the Zinzao Talia combo as well, since Bin has taken that away in terms of taking the Rumble away. I am expecting Shanks and Tarzan to possibly bundle one or the other. You know, the Pantheon Talia or the Zinzao Talia, both pretty good.
See when anyone's legend decide to cook up. The fact that both Nefiri and Vi, the two priority skirmishing-esque junglers, are gone off the table. I would imagine that anyone's legend would love to secure the Xin Zhao for them. Things like the Pantheon can come up later in terms of priority, but you're absolutely right. The Xin would be the most that makes sense for AL here, but they're gonna lock in their top lane pick of choice with the Scion, and oh boy, wow, it's a Lilia lock-in.
Okay, well, but Zinzao Talia would be a great slot for BLG then, I guess, or Pantheon Talia even. And having the Pantheon, you can actually guarantee influence in side lanes in the early game as well. We saw what Tarzan was able to do to top esports right here, but I'm just, I do not want to see that hover on the Sejuani, especially with Rumble. It just makes me so sad to see Beichuan on a leash here by BLG. I mean, okay, this is going to be most likely like a front to back. Now, the problem with Sion is a lot of the most prominent AD carries do not kill tanks. Right here, BLG have got Yone and Rumble that are really good at trading HP bars. And if they can manage to get an AD carry such as like maybe a Xayah, Kaisa if she makes it through the ban phase as well, they could potentially have a pretty good composition that can go through the meat wall that Sion will be in the late game.
Yeah, Varus is the only AD carry that's been taken off the board, but both teams have now locked in more than likely their top 3-man core, since technically the Tristana can be flexed either between Hope and Shanks, but this has been the answer into Yone if you see it picked early on the enemy side of the draft so that you can at least get push, and that helps a lot with anyone's legend, since if you're going to play a Lilia, especially in this tank like Sejuani, you want to have that farm advantage. You want to be accelerating and counter jungling as much resources as possible as we start seeing what anyone's legend decides to ban away in terms of bot lanes.
Love how Lucian has sort of reason in priority as well, has two very strong pairings in terms of Nami and Milios. Even if you take one away, you kind of actually have to take the actual AD carry away from them as well. For AL, I agree with you. This is most likely going to be Shanks piloting that Tristana mid lane. It makes sense, right? They need some sort of AD champion that can push heavily. Azir doesn't pair up really nicely with Lilia either. So we're looking potentially for like a very, very strong bot lane duo for AL, specifically since they have R5. They can guarantee themselves a counter pick at least on support. So I would love to see them. They don't want Kalista to be played through. They don't want the Lucian to be a reply. So what are you really playing? Because everything short-ranged has been banned out from the side of AL. So Kalista cannot come through. Lucian cannot come through. I'm wondering if AL are looking potentially for something like a Kaisa for themselves?
It would have to be blind if anyone's legend would just want to slam that in. Poppy was secured. Yeah, could just be it, the lock-in for anyone's legend. If the Kaisa is the lock-in here, BLG have some answers that they could look for if you want to play for safety and just ensure that your front line is doing all the front load work. You can go for an Ezreal for Elk and just try to give on a proactive support that he can go for. No, it's Xayah. Wow, they just want to absorb the engage and kite back.
All right, what you got here, AL? Because primarily, Xayah really struggles in lanes because her primary support pairings are heavy engaged that get nullified by things like Nico, Renata, Karma, things like this that want to poke. But right here, Kaisa has pretty much the free reign of playing with a heavy engaged support that also can counter Rakan. Xayah, of course, it's a little bit difficult for Kaisa to play into Xayah due to the feathers, but I just really like what AL got going on for themselves right here. It feels like kind of like an all-in composition, but if they choose to, they can also play more front to back. There's so many different avenues that AL can pilot this composition, whilst BLG, I feel like, have the more traditional front to back with Beichuan engaging on the follow-up and seeing if Knight can get one of these multi-man ultis.
And as we have seen with Beichuan on this roster for BLG, we have expected him whenever he is playing things like the Sejuani or the Skarner recently. He has been willing to drop some of his resources, some of his own tempo, just to find angles. I don't know if you can realistically lock down a Tristana before having access to something like Glacial Prison or Fate Sealed on the Tristana, since she can buffer a lot of the CC early on. But I'm imagining that maybe a lot of the pressure is just either playing to bin or playing to bot lane here as Beichuan.
I feel like for Beichuan right here, first of all, you got a path somewhere where you're gonna have that early game priority. Sejuani doesn't necessarily like to be in too much heat in the early game. You're looking to get that level 6, potentially grab a flash later on. So I'm expecting to see maybe pathing towards that bot lane, Elk and on. You've got the Xayah early game. You can shove in the wave. You're playing versus a very short range AD carry in the likes of Kai'Sa as well. And you push Hope and Kael further behind underneath their tower. So I'm expecting that to be the case. However, it always becomes a little bit tricky when we're talking about priority when that mid lane is going to be permanently pushing for Shanks since he has got that Tristana mid lane.
It's going to be a difficult one for BLG, but the pieces are definitely there if they can get things aligned and online. Anyone's Legend, a big test for them if they can continue the hot streak after sweeping top esports. Let's hit the riff for game 1 between BLG and AL. Epic Gios from the crowd tonight. Let's go. Back-to-back series. The fans are working overtime as already aggressive invade from anyone's Legend. 4-man, even a 5th man just right behind them if Shanks wants to get involved as well. And this will at least give them some early vision on this red quadrant.
That is so genius, right? Remember what we said earlier on. Beichuan wants to be roaming towards that bot side. He wants to roam towards Elk and on. However, right here,
should be fine, but that's a lot of damage already. And he was forced to burn his bot just because he didn't want to go down because he doesn't have enough time to base.
Yeah, Exotech Sejuani might be OP in TFT, but right here seems to be struggling in that early game. Taking a few hits from that
Bastion
Tristana.
buff, I fear. Yeah. They're missing that synergy.
Now, this is great from AL, because usually you don't associate a strong level 1 with an Alistar. He's not even a champion. He's 0.02 of a champion in that early game, as it's getting pretty well displayed right here. Absolutely useless of a champ in that level 1. And look at Tarzan, man. He's gonna take the complete beeline towards his red side. And what we're talking about is, one, Beichuan was to path towards that bot lane. Now his Raptors are being taken away. Perfect. He can't do that. Well, he'll still do that, but he will be missing that camp, right? Second, Tarzan is going to have one extra camp of the Gecko. Lilia, one of those champions that clears really easily. And 3, Shanks is going to have perma priority over that mid lane, which means that even if Beichuan tries to play for any of those Scuttle Crabs, AL can actually pull the trigger and shut that down.
And that's going to bleed into any respawn Raptor camps as well for Beichuan, since it was the first camp taken off the board. That'll be coming up just a little bit after that crab time. So as long as anyone's Legend is able to keep up this pressure, Beichuan is going to be starving on Econ just through the lanes. I think the only hope is that On and Elf are able to have lane priority for themselves. And I don't think it would be the strategy to help Beichuan on a Sejuani, but I would like it, especially if I was in Beichuan's case, to be like, hey guys, this Tarzan Lilia is going to invade my bot side a lot. Can we collapse on this guy? Can we like force a play and try to punish that in the future?
I actually find what Tarzan has done here absolutely genius. He's left his red buff up to try and catch up with where the Sejuani will be when the bot lane Scuttle Crab spawns. Mind you, this is Beichuan's only lane of priority, so the only thing he can do is get his bot lane to help him in this river. Now Shanks, a little bit too far forward. That's not a W.
Be able to rocket jump away. Yeah, he's totally fine, and because Knight nor Beichuan have on-demand CC chain, not being level 6, Shanks is relatively safe. And as you called out, Tarzan is able to get that first crab on the bottom side of the map, even in the one lane that BLG has priority in.
Yeah, I'd like to see him beeline over to the other side of the reef, or the other Scuttle Crab, because right here, Beichuan spotted that there was no red buff on this Lilia. On an Elgar, too overextended here.
On is able to at least stop Tarzan for now with the grand entrance, but Elf might be forced to flash, but it's enough shielding and sustain that Elk is able to survive against the Lilia gang.
I'm actually very surprised that Tarzan didn't try to actually get a little bit more dominance on the top side of the map as Knight takes another huge hit from that Tristana. It's kind of how the matchup goes, at least in the early game, until you have a Vamp Scepter, manage to lifesteal just a little bit. It will be the second spawn of Raptors that will be stolen away from Tarzan, but I think if you're Beichuan, you're kind of fine with that. You got a Scuttle Crab without having to fight with it, you stole away the red buff from Tarzan, so those objectives are a huge W, especially when you're playing in a matchup that you should be falling behind.
I'm gonna set up a trap here, and the wave is too big. It would be unideal. But yeah, Beichuan is definitely navigating the early stage of this uncomfortable Lilia versus Sejuani matchup fairly well. He's not trying to ego and match, you know, some of the camps in the face of Lilia. It's just being able to take camps, knowing where Tarzan is not going to be. And in fact, even though maybe experience-wise Tarzan is going to get better quality camps, right now it's Beichuan with the lead. He's first to level 5. He's the first up on camp.
You know, that's not what you want to be seeing if you're looking at Lilia versus Sejuani. Lilia does clear a lot faster, and I feel like a lot of the options, like Tarzan had so many options, and I think he might have overcooked a little bit. Like, leaving the red buff was great because he was going to match the Sejuani down bot lane, but then Beichuan left that Scuttle Crab, ganked through mid, went to his red side as he spotted Lilia without a red buff on her, took that red buff, and then instead of Tarzan sort of taking that priority through mid and taking that fight on the top Scuttle Crab, he decided to just play for bot lane, took a little bit of a trade, sure, goes above Zaya, but that doesn't necessarily result into anything super positive for that bot lane of AL. If anything, you see that Elk is still up in CS, he's still up in gold, as this lane should be.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that Tarzan and Lily is not absolutely astro-gapping the CS lead right now is such a saving grace for this Sejuani. So Beichuan now going to potentially pay a visit to the bottom side of the map, going for a quick hover. Dragon is available for contestation, but it's a big wave that On and Elk are absorbing right now. Pretty sure anyone's legend were able to spot him just in the river, so they at least have info on where the Sejuani is, and Tarzan is going to see if he can meet him.
Tarzan right here is spotting, but he's also looking for the next spawn of the Raptors a little bit early on this regard. Kael.
Another dubstep ignite dropped by Kael on the outside. This time it's at the cost of Elk's flash, but they're starting to roam up, ready to contest to see if Tarzan can be bullied off away from the Raptor camp. I mean, this is awesome. They're helping Beichuan secure the Raptor.
He got one. That is his third camp of Raptor spawning. Manages to smite that one away, and Tarzan just doesn't miss a bit, man. Especially when you're playing Lily, it's just so easy to take the Raptor camp when you have mid lane prio and Shanks can move first. It's just so easy to just bully that Raptor camp away, as Shanks is bullying Beichuan alone. Lucky Beichuan didn't have that level 6 there. Very, very close, but not quite.
On below 300 HP, Elk at 50%. Hope is sending it with the Killer Instinct, knowing that he has level 6. Whoa! I was not expecting that damage to come out, but that is first blood for Hope.
Yeah, Hope stayed alone in lane as Kael actually roamed, so he ended up getting that extra tick towards that level 6. Reminder right there, Elk had lost his flash in the previous 2 versus 2 down bot lane as well, and that lost flash resulted in a great 2 versus 2 kill for Hope and Kael. And especially when you're playing against a tanky member like Sejuani, you want your Kai'Sa to get ahead. Let's watch this one more time. Elk and On right there tried to push out the wave, but the wave can't push towards them as well, so they don't have to walk up. They walk up, get CC'd by Alistar, and this is the problem right here. The stacks from the Kai'Sa passive get popped, and Elk does not have his flash, which is lost a couple of seconds ago, actually, a couple of minutes ago, to that bot lane G2.
Meanwhile, the rest of BLG are trying to secure as many grubs as possible before Tarzan arrives to the party. And at least for BLG's case, they'll be able to knock up one of the feats, since it is 2. So Glacial Prison used gets the flash out of Tarzan. He is level 6, but he's not going to be able— oh, whoa! Beichuan stole the last grub! That's 3 grubs for them, and Tarzan no flash! Equalizer right on top, thanks to the collapse from Bin. He's flashing on top of Kael, knowing that he's got nowhere to go. Big fight win for BLG, as now the rest of anyone's legend are forced to retreat.
Oh wow, AL just pulled the top esports right there. No setup in the river, yet you walk through a choke point when it's 4 versus 3. You know there's TP coming through for BLG. Bin is there. He had a fantastic equalizer to stop the choke point, as well as Shanks. Uh-oh, fried chicken.
Shanks. Okay.
Roasted chicken, rather.
Good buster shot. is at least able to keep himself alive, but that definitely was close. And right now, Trouble, BLG are seeming to fire on all cylinders, matching up against what should be, in our expectations, the best team in the LPL right now.
Absolutely, they're actually pushing AL really hard here in the early game, and that's actually very concerning, considering that AL should have better control of those river openings. That mid lane is permanently pushed in by Shanks. I just haven't necessarily seen Shanks link up with Tarzan at all to try and help him contest the Raptor camp. That was the third camp spawning, to help him contest getting inside the river. So I feel like a little bit too much chopping right here for Shanks, pushing out the waves as Elk is looking for a little bit of revenge on Hope. Just a couple of feathers.
It was definitely close. 300 HP. Sustaining off of a pot puts him back at 400. Still has Flash, Killer Instinct, and Barrier. Just when things get dicey, but definitely a little concerning here. 10.5 minutes so far into the game. We've got our second dragon spawning at 2.5. Knight is now pushing on the bottom side of the map. And with already tier 2 boots and a Vamp Scepter at his side, he's definitely able to do a lot better at sustaining and surviving what was such an impressive matchup early on.
Yeah, once you get that Vamp Scepter, start lifestealing just a little bit through the trades as well, it just becomes that much easier for Yone to play these. Once Blade the Ruin King comes through, he becomes an actual champion. I've said this so many times, I'll say this again, he caps. Like, that's his best item by far. Doesn't matter if he gets 2-3 items, all he needs is Blade the Ruin King, and then he becomes a real threat. He is already a real threat to Shanks over on the side lane, and this is becoming a little bit concerning by AL. These were lanes that were not supposed to win in the early game. Knight was not supposed to get out of the lane phase, and Tarzan's gonna have a huge task here because BLG are not very squishy. Like, you look at Yone and Sejuani are gonna be running into you together with Rakan. Tarzan's gonna have to fight really hard for those Q flashes to get big 2 or 3 man ults in these fights for AL.
And look at this. Shanks tries to buffer it, at least flashes away from the Fate Seal. Kael comes in just to relieve any pressure, but that's a flash down from this Tristana. So the next time that Glacial Prison is up and available for Beichuan, that could be a guaranteed setup play, but they're going to continue it now that On is here with a 3v2. Elk already pushed in the mid lane, so they have push in. KL's the target. He's still not level 6, so he doesn't have the damage reduction from his ultimate. Shanks is under fire, tries to look for a jump onto Beichuan. Wait a minute, Shanks almost outplays it as KL found another one on the On before Knight is able to clean it up. Hope is now trying to match Elk here on the other play, but the Featherstorm doesn't get the rake pullback, and anyone's legend still keeping themselves even.
Yeah, absolute fist fight underneath the tower. I feel like BLG pushed the issue a little bit too hard. It's like, you can dive once, but they tried to take advantage of that timing window where Kael was not level 6. He didn't have the extra defenses, as you mentioned as well. Try and get that kill onto the Alistar, but once you overcommit once, you don't have the Sejuani ultimate anymore. Like, there wasn't much that was burned from the side of AL. And there's a lot you can buffer with the Alistar and the Tristana mobility that you have. And let's watch this one more time. The W will land onto the cow, and then the charm from On's ultimate right there. But look at all these buffers. You push away the Yone, and damage is not through. Rakana's already walked out the tower. Beichuan is tanking for too long. The tower is pre-buffered, and Shanks gets the kill, so he gets to walk away. So it's technically a 1v2 underneath the tower. That is a huge win right here for AL.
Played as well as they could have in that situation. The fact that anyone's ledger are able to walk away with some kills on their side at least makes it so that BLG are not just steamrolling from that scenario onward. We already saw that Tarzan was burning down the second dragon of the game. BLG prioritizing the top side, getting ready for the Rift Herald in 1 minute 43. KL forced to flash over the wall. Hope could be the target. The Prison still connects despite flashing. He could be in trouble here. Has the barrier, but the Fate Seal connects right on top for the knockup. Barrier, it's enough. He sustains with the health potion ticking, and anyone's legend AD carry shines through.
Woo, what an insane escape right here from Hope. Beichuan with the snipe from the ultimate almost ends up punishing, and mind you, this was a play that even the TP from Knight was committed to make work, and AL get out of that. There is no massive objectives on the map right now for BLG to take advantage of the man extra that they have on the Rift until Hope gets back on. However, very crucial summoner spells are missing right now. Hope and Shanks both flashless, and that's Sejuani. is looking very, very tasty, especially once the ultimate is back up for Beichuan.
Hope is going to be a sitting duck unless he can tactfully use that killer instinct to maneuver around something.
If no one knew, they'd think that Elk and Hope actually have IRL beef with each other. I feel like 80 carries in this meta are so damn bored that they will engage in 1v1 shenanigans just so they can press buttons in the early game. Prove me wrong.
Is there beef? This is new to me.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. It just looks like it because they've been 1v1ing the whole game.
True, true, true. Well, Hope has definitely been making a case for himself as potentially our best AD carry this split so far. Hope has had such a incredible blow up within this year alone, and I think between the placement stage and the rumble stage, every time this guy gets Kai'Sa, this guy is putting on a montage performance. But with the priority the BLG have been able to get through mid lane and top lane, they're gonna burn down the Rift Herald. No contest from the side of anyone's legend, trying to pressure maybe for the bot side of the map, but On is here to cover just in case things get dicey for Bin.
Yeah, I feel like AL are using sort of the same strategy they used versus Top Esports when Shanks was playing the Azir. Set that Tristana onto a side lane, and suddenly when the call has been cashed out, when you go to 2-3 items, you can actually get inside the in the team fights and start those 5v5s, and that's fair enough, right? They have incredible amounts of scaling. You're playing on-kid AD Kai'Sa with Kraken Slayer. You've got a Sion who's going to be building that HP and defenses. Lilia and Tristana both scale incredibly well into that late game. But so does BLG here. You're going to be running into a 3-item Yone, 3-item Rumble, and a lot of CC that can be layered between the feathers, the ult from Rakan, ult from Sejuani, ult from Yone. So I feel like even if Shanks gets to 2 to 3 item breakpoint for himself, it's going to be so difficult for this Tristana to actually pilot around all these abilities flying in his face in team fights.
Yeah, execution is going to be at an all-time high for Shanks on this Tristana, and to be fair, also for Hope, this double marksman composition has to navigate so many threats, and if Tarzan and the rest of this front line from the side of anyone's legend is not able to create that space, then the requirement in the task is even that much harder. As BLG starting to shift their priorities towards the top side of the map now, Shanks and Kael setting up post alongside Tarzan. Hope is also moving as well, so there should not be a force from BLG for the top tier 1.
Yeah, everyone's kind of chilling right now. It is the time where you've realized as BLG that you are stronger when you are taking these fights, so there is no reason to force the issue right here. They're going to take the easy path, just take the Rift Herald, maybe bump it onto the mid lane tower, see how fast AL responds, which is not fast enough because Tristana was in the side lane. Shanks didn't commit his TP right here, so that's a pretty uncontested mid lane tier 1 tower, and BLG will take this anytime. I just want to remind people that the thing that made BLG so strong in 2024 were their team fights, and how with very slight advantages, they were able to chip bits of the map away. And taking that mid lane tier 1 when you've got so many champions that can dive through Fog of War onto any target, Rakan, Yone, Sejuani, is just going to make it so hard for AEL to push that mid lane wave to then dip into Reaver for those neutral objectives. Talking about them, 35 seconds, next Dragon's Up.
Right now, BLG taking a lot of bases on a couple of their members here, both of the bot laners trying to maximize their builds before this very dragon fight. Navori finished, so now Elk is on 2 items. Hope yet to finish his own second item just because he went for the tier 2 boots. Elk doesn't have it. Just making sure that he can maximize damage output and just trusting in the peel that his team will hopefully provide him, as well as his own Featherstorm and mechanics.
Yeah, I mean, let's be completely honest, right? I don't think there is any threat that will reach Elk. There's just so many other champions that are in front of him that are a threat themselves that I feel like Elk will be the last target for AL. Talking about this BLG, as Sejuani with 1 trillion HP trying to scout away, and the dragon has been started.
8,000 already, 7,000. BLG trying to force their way through the top side of this river. Knight getting ready to check Tarzan, knock him up. Maybe equalizer right into the back line. Knight is able to connect as well. Tarzan secures the dragon, but can they win the fight? That's the big question. Tarzan just getting soloed out by Bin as he follows the deer over the wall and burns it for roast venison. BLG, what a massive wipe of the fight. Takedown 3 for the price of no one.
And that's exactly what we were talking about when we spoke about the team fights and how easy or not they will be for Tristana, Shanks cannot walk up to put a single ult attack in this fight. There's just so many abilities and so many threats that can find that backline, the equalizer, the Yone ult, the Rakan. Let's watch this one more time. Eyes on Shanks right there. He's the primary damage from the side of AL. What a fantastic blast cone from On. Finds Shanks. The Knight piles up the ult on top of the equalizer. Legally 0 response timer for Shanks right there to respond to any of those cannonballs flying his way from BLG.
Once you eliminate 1/2 of this marksman composition, the damage output is just significantly reduced, and the result is there. Even with anyone's legend not necessarily being on 2 item spikes there, oh, what a world it could have been if Shanks was actually allowed to play the game in that scenario. But now BLG rocketing ahead with a very convincing 4,000 to 5,000 gold lead. Yeah, anyone's legend has 3 dragons to themselves, but I imagine that BLG are going to be so content at taking any fight from the rest of the game.
Oh, absolutely. Look at them. They're just literally looking inside AL's jungle right here. They could be looking for a fight. 4 seconds for Beichuan's ult. Come back up and Bin is on the side as well.
Good buffer by Shanks, is able to distance himself away. Equalizer is going to cut him down to size. On was thinking about going forward, but because he doesn't have flash, he would not have enough range to cover. But the fact that Shanks is able to manage to survive is at least nice for anyone's legend so far. But now the Otacon, they have full pressure on it since Shanks was forced to base. This is going to be a massive team fighting buff for BLG.
I mean, right here, BLG cut off AL from their own jungle, which means they had full control over the bot side of the map. If you look at all the wards that are inside the bot quadrant of Tarzan's jungle, it's just impossible for AL to get any control. So all they could do is just play for the top side of the map, potentially try to push for the top lane tier 1 with the Sion, sorry, but BLG are just so far ahead in terms of items, in terms of levels, in terms of vision, and I feel like I've had a slight beef right here in this game, particularly with AL on their vision control and the setups around the neutral objectives. I feel like not covering your flanks is very important for AL right here. Actually, covering your flanks, sorry. It's very important for AL since you want to play a very structured front to back. If Flandre is not in front of Hope and Shanks, this will never work. If Knight finds his way to the backline together with On, this is not going to work for AL. So they need ultimate pressure and ultimate vision around any objective that they choose to fight for.
Yeah, and with such a massive wall diff already for BLG, it just feels hard to take even fights, let alone fights where your marksmen don't get a chance to play the game. So now, not only double marksmen on anyone's legend have to work at an all-time high, but also their front line has to create that space, and the onus is on them to be even more diligent about doing so. As with this lead, BLG get a chance to strong force their way through any of the side lanes that they choose, continuing to knock down these turrets, ballooning the gold lead even further on their side. And anyone's legend, I feel like you are just hoping that BLG don't press the gas fast enough so that you can maybe hit 3 items on these marksmen and just pray that Shanks and Hope play out of their freaking minds.
Haha, with a reverse card though. You already have 2 champions that can kill tanks, and Sion is pretty much your only credible frontline right there. Riftmaker, Leandris, Blade of the Ruin King, Shieldbow. Yone and Rumble are gonna shred through that Sion before Xayah even gets anywhere near him. And this is becoming really problematic because the whole structure of the front to back relies on your tank being so beefy that he'll buy you time for the Rage Blade to stack up, for Tristana to get a couple of ult attacks, get her passive on her E. So it's just structurally it's becoming really hard for BLG to play these sort of team fights, not to mention that side lane is very uncontested at this point. Level 15 Yone, very close, level 16, 2 levels up on Shanks. Like, who stops this Yone in the side lane at this point?
Definitely not the Tristana. Poor guy is 2 levels down, so he's just using Flandre to safely walk in and guarantee himself even more gold and a little bit of extra XP as fast as possible. But the proactive TP ensures that Knight is able to clear out this tier 2 on the bot side, or at least that Flandre was able to answer it, so Knight doesn't take the turret quite outright. Bin is answering on the top side, and even though anyone's legend are not able to contest for dragons, thankfully for them, they got the first 3, so they can kind of just let these dragons go and give themselves as much time as possible. But like you said, Trouble, I don't think it necessarily gets better for them later the game goes on, because as these marksmen scale up, so are the Rumble and the Yone.
Hold up.
On, going forward with the quickness, being able to find Shanks into the back line. Glacier Prison was already exhausted. Oh, great equalizer. Beichuan trying to flash on top of Shanks, but he's able to use the butcher shot and the jump to get away, but that means Kael is left for dead, and Elk is able to turn that cow into mincemeat. And the rest of anyone's legend are forced to retreat. No Baron buff up yet. Oh, Shanks is still under fire. Beichuan does not want to let this Tristana out of his sight, chasing him until the very ends of the base.
All right, back to the drawing board for AL. These fights look so miserable. That was On getting caught on his lonesome and still doesn't go down. And that's probably the squishiest, easiest member you can kill on the side of BLG. Because if you look on the others, there's like a bunch of lifesteals, Seeker's Arm Guards, Hasha Ult, whatever it is. So the fact that AL caught On all on his own and still couldn't overcommit right there to get a kill down. BLG actually came through so fast to defend that Rakan, and you're seeing that it's very problematic for AL. And right here, even if Hope did not want to play the front to back and wanted to look potentially to dive in the backline, assassinating someone, Zek is one of the best anti-dive AD carries in the game. You're not going to be killing Elk anytime soon. Bin could be your target as well, but now he's got Seekers very close to Hourglass as well in his inventory. He's not going to be dying anytime soon. I'm like scratching my head trying to find the ultimate real scenario where Hope actually gets to DPS. And unfortunately, I don't think there is one for AL.
Yeah, there is no ideal target to dive as Kai'Sa, because as you already pointed out, there's so many methods or maneuvers that are already built into either Champion's kit or the Champion's build that BLG have assembled at this point in the game. And you don't have the luxury of just being able to front to back. As Flandre's going to try to force the issue onto Bin. Baron is alive, and look where BLG are already going for. Bin is just going to stall this fight as long as possible, and eventually he will die, but he's going to pop the Seekers. This gives more time for BLG to burn down the Baron. And don't tell me Shanks dies too through the Leandry's buff. That would not be ideal. All right, well, Shanks survives, but it's Baron secured for the side of BLG.
So a teleport, a Cyan ult, and Tarzan's Lilia committed down the bot lane to barely kill Bin and not trade a 1-for-1 kill for a Baron on a level 17 Yone that has been absolutely uncontested on a side lane. I think BLG will take this trade any time of the week. And I feel like this game is as good as clinically done, I think, for BLG right here. All they have to do is just use their pressure, get that Yone on the side lane, grab the remainder of tier 2 towers that remain for AL. They're all pretty low HP. Just dispose of that, keep AL in their base, rinse and repeat.
And you know what? Even though the Glacier Prison does not connect, it forces Hope off momentarily so that Elk can secure the tier 2 in the mid lane. So, all worth in the chat, as anyone's legend is just trying to farm up as many resources as possible. The fact that Tarzan can't even go for a super DPS heavy second item, has a go for the Zhonya's, just goes to show that anyone's legend needs as many utility activables as possible just so that they can create space for Shanks and Hope. Tarzan knows he's not going to be the big carry this game in terms of being able to DPS all these guys. He has to make plays.
Talking about making plays right here, it's just so difficult for AL to even look up, especially when they don't have Tristana around. The wave clear is very scattered as well. Kai'Sa very short range, has to actually walk on the wave as well. But BLG very clinical here. Again, they'll take the 2 towers, push the waves under AL's base towers, and then back off, reset, grab more wards. You want to play for this dragon. Again, this is still a quote-unquote win condition for AL to be able to get that dragon and get the soul. I mean, we saw how he turned the tides around for the NIP series, right? So having the soul can definitely help you team fight. And of course, the slow is going to mean a lot coming through for AL, especially since they want to create that distance. So this is still a win condition right there. The only problem is that you're stuck in your base. You can't walk in your jungle. Hold on.
Oh, Flandre forced to already use the onslaught. Kael trying to go in onto Elk, but he's by himself. That's an easy 5-on-4 now guaranteed for the side of BLG for the next 30 seconds.
Manages to get Elk's ult and Ghost, but that's all kind of she wrote right there. 4 versus 5 for AL, and sure, they can afford to lose another dragon. They've got 3 of them. They wanted to stall into the 3 items. There they are. Raafaa, they're the 3 items. Shanks has it. Hope has it. Like, they're right there, but BLG just have push everywhere. If you cannot walk inside your own jungle, you cannot walk into the river, you cannot play for those objectives. It doesn't matter at this point, I guess, how many items you do have.
Look at what Knight is building. Yeah, it is definitely a tough one for BLG. Okay, they're going to send it right on the bin. They know that he's isolated, but he still has a Zhonya's. Now Beichuan is here to see if he can bail out his top laner. Teleport comes in for Knight. Hope has sent it, and it ends up just being a 1-for-1, which is not where you want to be as anyone's legend. Flandre will fall as well. Knight picks up a double, and BLG, knowing that they have a 4-on-3, they're going to try to take as much from the base as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, AL, they had to make a move. They tried to make a move, it didn't work. Tarzan?
3Q man flash into the lilting lullaby, but Knight still had the QSS, is able to pop it so he doesn't fall asleep. And Tarzan is the one going night-night. Shanks, the only damage carry left, but out flashing forward to guarantee the Feather Storm into the rake pullback. Anyone's legend now down all 5 members. BLG, the only thing that's saving anyone's legend for now is that they don't have a minion wave immediately to push into the base, but it's coming through. And will they have enough time to push for the end? Probably not, just the inhibitor turret.
That fight was so anticlimactic because you mentioned there was no way for BLG to actually end the game here. So rinse and repeat. BLG, if they want to win as well and play it very, very cleanly, 1 minute and 40 seconds for Baron as well. This would make it very easy. Let's watch this one more time. Like, Flandre flashes for the knock-up to get Hope in on that Kai'Sa. And that's a pretty good chance to get a kill onto a side lane, but the response comes instantly. The TP through Knight. Beichuan's around. On and Elk are arriving from that mid lane. They weren't really that far away. And on the screens right now, Beichuan pretty low.
Super in trouble. Kael and Flandre trying to beat the front line as much as possible. On doesn't get the grand entrance, but finds the quickness on the Shanks. He's stunned up for a moment. Tarzan following up with that bloom, but Flandre is still getting burned down by the rest of the damage dealers by BLG. Shanks tries to send it for Bin, but he gets interrupted by Beichuan with that Arctic Assault. Elk is still pumping. Knight is ready to send it once again. Tarzan trying to find damage as much as he can. Shanks jumping in for Bin, but he's getting spaced and Astral glided on. No way out for this Tristana. Elk picks up a triple. Hope died somewhere in the timeline as well. Tarzan's the only person to try and defend his base.
BLG are just too far ahead. The levels, the extra items are coming through. The 10,000 gold lead is coming through. And they're gonna clean up this base. First inhibitor is gonna fall down. They're gonna leave the bottom lane inhibitor still standing. But if you look on the top left of your screen, it's 20 seconds for the next Baron. So making sure that you're setting up for the big purple worm is more important than taking that second inhibitor. I mean, one push and we'll think that, oh, nice!
Tarzan doesn't even get a chance to pop the Zhonya's hourglass. He knew he was cut off. No chance to survive that one. And with Baron coming up in 7 seconds, a perfect time for BLG to secure a Baron objective without a smite contest.
What a great snipe right there from Knight as well to predict Tarzan's movement. It's not very easy, especially versus Lilia. Lilia is a very slippery champion, so great ult right there from Knight to catch them. And AL are trying to get whatever vision they can into this quadrant of Tarzan's jungle. 20 seconds for Tarzan to spawn, and this is a smiteless AL. It's going to be a pretty free Baron for BLG.
Get a chance to look at the picture-in-picture. It looks like that's where Hope died in the aftermath. It was just Knight forcing the issue, flashing on top of the Kai'Sa as well. Meanwhile, back to live, BLG secure the Baron for themselves. This is a 12,000 gold advantage from the side of BLG. And we had a lot of questions coming about whether Beichuan was going to fix what BLG needed to be solved, and whether it's a mechanical thing or a momentum shift thing. Clearly, the change has worked. BLG are firing on all cylinders on what should be, after beating top esports 2-0, our best team remaining in the league.
Absolutely, and what a banger it would be if AL beat top esports 2-0 and then BLG proceeds to beat AL on a 2-0, as the 1-0 is pretty certain right there. You know how we said that, as I'm saying, is that BLG just pushing with Baron right here, guys. It's just as simple as push the towers, kill remaining AL members, end the game. It'd be so funny because we're saying that this top 2 is much isolated from the rest of the teams, but BLG might actually insert themselves back in that conversation.
Potentially, now that Beichuan has brought some revitalization that was needed for this roster. Anyone's legend already getting stunned up by that Glacial Prison. Flandre trying to hold his own, but he's already down to 50% HP. Knight takes a lot of damage out front and out the back, but
Knight
at least... Oh my
just took the
goodness.
explosion to the rest of his team.
You know what? They don't care.
Why not?
BLG are like they can take the explosion. Or anyone's legend just gonna send it right here. Tarzan right in front of Beichuan's face. Flandre is gonna take up as much as he can. Unstoppable onslaught onto the frontline members. Tarzan looking for that lilting lullaby, putting members to sleep. Shanks looking for the first reset on a Beichuan, but we've got hope diving past. They found Elk. They're down 12,000 gold advantage by the way, and somehow anyone's legend. They're bringing it back. BLG, they cooked too much. They disrespected anyone's legend, and now AL have 5 members to 2 on the map.
BLG sent it as a last-second resort for themselves. Get away with 3 kills, a bunch of shutdowns, and most importantly, the Dragon Soul. Just as a reminder right here, when you are 3-4 items deep, when you're that far into the game, items don't matter as much. As you can see, okay, overstaying does matter though, so Knight's gonna get another one for himself. But if you look over in Knight's inventory, he's got 4 items, so does Shanks. But look how split BLG is here. Elk and Knight are hitting Flandre. Flandre now has managed to grab 3 items in his inventory. She was tanking forever. On then he's gonna miss his ult, he's gonna miss his knock-up. They grab Tarzan, but it's too late. Elk dies mid-ult and Bin is way too overextended. AL managed to split BLG apart, and remember that Sion that couldn't tank much because he was behind in the entire game, and then items were built faster than he could tank. He's got 4 items now, Thorn Mail being one of them. That's a pretty beefy wall in front of AL.
Oh, BLG! I mean, they're still technically up 10,000 gold, but anyone's legend found a window where they are able to split up those gold advantages individually and made it such a favorable fight for them. I think BLG, going into this next fight, they shouldn't as carelessly split up like that again, but the fact that anyone's legend was able to pull that off gives them a second win as they're going to try to defend this siege onto the bottom inhibitor.
Yeah, that was done through many choke points and many avenues inside that jungle. Right here, it's a pretty much plain open field for BLG. That's a very early ult!
Forced to use the Thunderstorm early. Kael's gonna send it. They had to defend through the front line. A lot of damage right into Flandre and Kael. And Knight finds Shanks this time around. Hoping a 1v5. I don't think it's gonna happen this time. BLG, stop with the cooking, start with the precision, and close out this game for the first win of the series.
Huge win right here from BLG, picking up that first win versus AL, who 2-0'd the #1 team in this split in the likes of Tess. And BLG, if you are a believer, if you are a fan of theirs, well, you could definitely see that the spark is back, the team fights, the early game aggression, the laning phase as well. I feel like that was a testament to see, can Beichuan keep up with Tarzan? He absolutely did. Can Bin and Knight actually show up in lanes? They actually did. BLG, you could argue, are back.
I'm just so glad we're not getting an AL 2-0 stomp, you know, where BLG are floundering. Because the last time these two played, it was a 2-1. BLG were able to find a game win on top of anyone's legend, but it didn't come nearly as coordinated as this. We're not going to talk about the last fight that anyone's legend found. You know, that was the one time where BLG were like, listen, guys, we got 13,000 gold lead. We can do anything we want. And then after the fight, like, okay, guys, we can't do that again. But it's okay. It's okay. BLG are learning. They're pushing their limits now with Beichuan on their roster, and they're discovering that maybe they can return to the former glory that was BLG 2024.
Yeah, and I feel like that was, again, coming back to the AEL point, that was a little bit of an overcooking when it comes to the draft. It just didn't necessarily make it very easy for them to play, but also I feel like Shanks and Tarzan were just so damn disconnected. When you are playing a heavy farming jungler such as Lilia that wants to get ahead from the Sejuani, and you've got to permanently shove in mid, I don't think I saw Shanks necessarily help Tarzan get places like get the Raptors much easier. Like, he had the timing every single time on Beichuan, but it felt like Shanks was just unwilling to move from that mid lane, and he prioritized that farm and CS, which is fair enough. He is playing that Tristana, but I felt like those early game advantages were not pushed hard enough from AL.
Well, now when we get ready for the second draft, anyone's legend, I think, are going to have to pay a lot more respect to what BLG have in terms of agency across the lane. And if you go for some early priority in some of these matchups as well, you got to leverage it in a way that's more than just, well, I'm keeping Knight shoved under tower. It's like, okay, but then what are you doing after the push, right?
Yeah, yeah. And that was the problem right there. Yeah, you saw Tarzan 18k damage, 23 coming through from Sejuani. And even though Sejuani does a lot of people think Sejuani's AP. Her primary form of damage is physical damage. So the 23k was her smacking you hard. But I feel like Lilia should be one of the primary carries when it's picked. And of course, it was picked early in their draft as well. They chose to go with the Sion Lilia early on, but it just didn't come into fruition. And again, I have a few questions right here because Lilia has been a prominent jungle champion for a long time in the LPL, particularly towards the later patches. However, things like Xin Zhao, Pantheon really do accelerate that early game. And I'm actually sitting there like scratching my head. I'm like, Taliyah was open, surely better than Tristana. Pantheon, Xin Zhao are open, surely better if you want to bridge that gap between that early and late game that AL can have. And I think unfortunately in this particular draft for AL, there was just not a single bridge from that early to that late game. And since you kept falling more and more and more behind and BLG could match the scaling, you just were never able to come back if you're AL.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if anyone's legend just took that Lilia Tristana matchup and be like, well, in other series, we just steamroll over them, and the jungler kind of like loses her mind, and he goes, "Whoa, they're taken by camps. What am I supposed to do?" But the fact that Beichuan was able to react perfectly to all the camps that he lost and said, "Okay, well, I'm just gonna go where Tarzan is not." The fact that he found, ways to keep even in the jungle, then Tarzan doesn't get that massive jungle lead. He's not hitting his first item spike. They're not able to leverage that off of the first flip of the game, and the fact that it's BLG rolling away with the early punches, as you called out, well, what do you have left on BLG's side to then bridge that gap?
And I want to say here, because remember we had a conversation earlier on where we were like, you know what, BLG are a little bit selfish, they don't really want to drop their waves to help their jungle, they kind of want a jungle to drop their camps to help them. I feel like on that third spawn of their Raptor camp, Elton on moved from that bot lane. They walked up and tried to defend their jungler. And I think this is a huge flip for BLG to see that sort of attitude of helping Beichuan so then he can help you. Because if the Sejuani falls too far behind to the Lilia, you're kind of screwed. So I feel like, again, the whole situation with Beichuan coming in, he read the map beautifully. Stole that red buff, so, as you said, where Tarzan wasn't, played away from the Lilia, got the advantages through the Sejuani after that level 6, tried to get flashes, permanently pressured Shanks in the mid lane by just showing up wave after wave as well, so Shanks cannot completely choke Knight under tower. I feel like that was that was my MVP for the game. Yeah,
I have no other contenders that I would throw in the hat forward for the side of
Knight
BLG.
did well. He died like once or 0 time. I don't remember. Maybe he didn't die
Listen,
at all.
but if you're getting spoon-fed like that and being protected like Yone, I expect you to deliver. You know?
Of course. Okay.
Come on. Beichuan. God. All right.
See, he
whatever.
didn't die. He didn't die.
It's the deathless KDA that gives him the edge. I see how it is. I don't know. Junglers deserve more love. Anyway.
Depends, okay?
Sure. You know what? That's valid. All right. Well, Knight does get our player of the game for the first one of the series. Now, just looking forward for anyone's legend. Obviously, there's questions we've asked now in the post game where can they really get away with disrespecting their opponent? I don't think so anymore. I think anyone's legend are going to have to bring their A game, and I really hope they do. They definitely were towards the end of the game, but 13,000 gold down, that's a little too late, fellas. So time to reel it back in. Time to reel it back in and start recognizing the